Thanks everybody for having me on today, and excellent setup for the things we'll discuss from a Cisco perspective. What I want to really kind of share, there's a lot of information around, what's happening right now with energy and sustainability, and a lot of the things that Cisco sees in the marketplace. All the indicators are that this is a rapidly accelerating area of interest, right? Everything from CEOs talking about their sustainability plans, and these are the types of things that you typically see when there is the hype curve, acceleration that we all kind of see come and go. Being professionals in different industries, we all see these trends come and go. But right now, energy is the big thing, and the good news is that requires the modernization of the grid. That requires modernization of a lot of different things if you're trying to achieve a sustainability goal. I'll try to hit on some of the adjacent topics, but for the most part, I want to just really dive into the cybersecurity aspect of it. That's been teased quite a bit today. So again, thanks everybody for coming, and thanks AngelBeat and OneSource for having me, and Rockwell for joining me. So let's talk a little bit about the just the overarching sort of view of what's going on. We've all seen the attacks. I don't need to go through all the names, but we see them a lot. Cisco gets brought in oftentimes after the milk has been spilled. It's not uncommon. I've actually personally been in a few meetings where customers have had us in, and during those conversations, they let us know that they were under a ransomware attack at that moment, and that their legal department was working with those attackers, trying to figure out how to get their network back. So it's very real. We all know it's real. For those of you who haven't been through that or haven't witnessed that, it's an emotionally distressing situation for everyone, and it's just not a good situation. So what Cisco really is trying to, what we try to help our customers think about is, what is it that you're trying to achieve from a security perspective? What's the value of, what are the different aspects that you would have in a network, and how are you set up today? How do we sort of migrate that forward? There's a discussion about reuse. That's also a very popular topic right now for Cisco, and that we've announced a campaign to buy back older equipment. We're trying to sort of reuse and refurbish our own gear, as well as buying back third-party gear, because for us, the view of sustainability is it's about conserving power, eliminating waste, and reducing the impact on your energy profile and water, right? So those are sort of the big three for us. Now, in the cyber attack, in this sort of cyber weapon view of this stuff, right? Because the way that Cisco oftentimes is brought into things is through federal regulation or through a customer that's under a compliance request. So we know that these things are happening, but sort of how does it surface in the market? I know there's some folks on the line that are consultants. I know there's some folks that are on the line that are actual end users and solution providers, et cetera. So from Cisco's view, we do have political consultants. We do have folks that sort of monitor what's going on. Is there a bill that's going to get funded? Is there certain, compliance issues that are coming down from like the EPA or Homeland Security? And all of that is really going on, right? There's a lot of concern about security, and it's viewed as, the attacks are viewed as cyber weapons, right? You don't think about that sometimes, that that's actually, when you hear about like, oh, this hack occurred and it was a Russian person or it was a North Korean, or whatever it is that they've identified that the threat might have come from those areas. This is much bigger than just maybe some folks that are out there trying to get ransomware. It can actually be, literally a hostile act from another country. So we all know what's going on and sort of, the rates of it. So I won't dig into a lot of that. But I think, it's really important to think about a couple of things that are occurring in our space. The bad guys do know where the weaknesses are, right? Obviously, some of them are, very talented in cybersecurity attacks and what they do, but they also have an awareness of sort of what's going on in the IT or the OT industry, and they realize where there's weaknesses, right? That's why you see standing challenges out there, like, hey, if you can hack our password, if you can hack our cybersecurity, and/or even the different agencies of the federal government have got standing challenges out there where they'll give a reward if you can, sort of hack through a network or expose a vulnerability so that they can correct it, right? So you got to think about where the weaknesses are. And sometimes it's in the staffing, in that, you've got these sort of legacy environments where you've got IT and OT and they don't always work together. Cisco sees this all the time where in I'd say 50% of the cases, I might be being generous, 60% of the cases, IT and OT sometimes are just not, they don't work together. There could be a CISO or someone like that looking at the overarching enterprise and saying, hey, I've got these policies and you guys both need to comply with it. I understand you both are not on the same network. When you pull IT or OT to the side and talk to them about their concerns, IT will think like, hey, I don't know what the OT folks are doing. I really don't want to be a part of it. I don't want to be responsible. Right? I hear that quite a bit. On the OT side, there's a discussion of, look, IT doesn't understand that downtime costs us millions of dollars. There's employee safety. We have a different view of the world. You can't just push out a reset of a switch or something like this, right? This is unheard of. Everything we do is carefully controlled, very methodical. We are not just, cowboys out there rebooting switches or moving servers around. Like, we just don't do that. And all those things are true, right? If you think about it, if you're an OT environment or if you're in the IT environment, you can understand the risk and the power and politics of all that goes on. So what Cisco's really trying to help, in solving this problem is, if you think about the logical versus the physical of what's happening in a network environment, it can be that you can have a together but separate environment in networks these days, right? There's an awful lot of innovation going on with networks. They're getting faster. There's a lot of ability to control logical environments such that, yes, a CISO can have an overarching policy and OT and IT might bump into the same guardrail, but they're not seeing each other's networks. They can't control each other's networks. They don't get involved. But obviously, OT doesn't always have information system experts walking around. That's why folks like OneSource or Rockwell or Cisco is brought in, right? Like, hey, I don't have a cybersecurity person on staff. Can I buy that as a managed offer? Can you do it for us? These types of things. But it's important to think about the people aspect. With any technology transformation, right? It's usually got the workforce is a key component. I can put the best solution in the world out there, but if you don't use it, it's not effective. So just realize that's a big part of what Cisco will assess when we look at these environments and we think about how to help them. The shift in the network landscape, obviously we all know these things, but it is an important thing to point out. Because of that legacy culture that you'll see in the industrial environment, you'll hear folks say things like, oh, I have an air gap, which means like, right, my network doesn't touch his network. There's just air between them, which doesn't mean anything. Or they might say like, I don't have any internet connectivity to my manufacturing floor. Like, that's unheard of. We don't allow that. Well, that way of thinking really is somewhat naive, right? If you look at the breaches that were not on anybody's slides today that we see across even the private sector with Molson Coors or other folks, attacks are occurring typically in two different areas, right? They're typically either at the application layer or at the network layer. And what I mean by that is somebody could be on the network, but then they go further and get into your applications, like your ERP applications or what have you. Sometimes breaches occur there through an open API. Other times it's lower level, it's in the network. But effectively, we really don't have the ability to have trust anywhere. And you hear Cisco and other folks talk about zero trust, but effectively, we'll dig into it here, but just realize that the legacy sort of posture of OT really is kind of why IT was like, hey, I don't want to, those guys are kind of reckless. I don't want to be involved. I don't want them on my network because I don't want to have a breach come back on us. I don't want it to blow up on us. Then throw in the COVID mix, right? If you've got an environment that doesn't have any cloud connectivity, how do you move half your workforce to work from home? How does that work, right? So all of this pressure is coming into the enterprise these days to figure out how in the world am I going to move part of my environment to the cloud so I can have people work from home? How am I going to be secure? I'm going to be rolling out, mobile applications. I've got a fleet that now has tracking devices in it. How do I secure all this? So just kind of painting a picture for you of the shift that's going on, and it's rapidly going on for most environments. Let's talk about how we protect them.
This is Martin. Sorry to interrupt you. We've got a couple minutes here. Could you hit some of the big boulders around, how Cisco applies its technology in this space, and how we can help Cisco and OneSource in collaboration to really help secure our customers' solutions around their sustainability efforts?
Sure. I would just say that, the number one thing is understanding what your assets are and understanding what protection you have in place today. right? And that's where OneSource will come in, or others that can help you with a security audit, or even your own staff. Oftentimes, customers will say, I have this number of devices on the network. We usually find out that they're off, and they may be off by a very large number. Somebody says, oh, I know I've got 100 devices on the network. It's not uncommon for us to find twice that many devices on the network, right? So in general, the first thing you want to do, and/or the architecture consideration, always has to begin with, what's the as-built? What do you have today? What's connected? What's it doing, right? And then as far as protecting the network, there's context. What does that device do? What should it not do, right? So just to kind of keep it very simple, right? If you've got a security camera or a card access system or something that's out there on the network that's a very basic device, obviously that device shouldn't be going to Amazon.com and placing an order, or things like this, right? So you've got to have context, and you've got to have an understanding of what your assets are. How many of the things do you have, and what are they able to do or not do? And then how do you put those into a structure that you can protect? So, when I talked about context a little bit, but oftentimes we'll find that in the OT environment, there's usually a very simple security profile there. There will be firewalls or sort of basic things, and that's usually not what you need, right? I'm going to just kind of, since we've got to move along, I'm going to go right to sort of one of my favorite slides. The way that, when you think about your environment, right, if you think about sort of like the way that the legacy environments might be, they might have a firewall, they may have some network security, but at the end of the day, you need a lot more than that these days, right? There's a statistic that I've heard a few different times, but it bears repeating, that 65% of most breaches could have been prevented with dual authentication, right? So what does that mean? If you log in with your login and password, right, the system could basically say, hey, I'm going to send you a PIN to your cell phone. If you could put that PIN in, then I'll let you in. That simple, basic sort of approach, just sort of knocking down like how exposed is an environment, and how can we actually sort of give you the best bang for your buck, and then step you through the right path, the right pace to get you where you need to go. So, there's multiple dimensions to security. Cisco has like 15 different security products for a reason, right? Whether that's industrial or if it's IT centric, there's different things that are going on. And so, as it was mentioned before, you don't have to remove devices on your network. Sometimes we can secure those as they are. And that's where you need an expert like OneSource to come in and help. So I'm going to kind of just jump to the end here. When you think about the energy grid and cybersecurity, there is going to be a lot of growth in the space. Cisco's invested in it, right? We're putting $100 million towards sustainability, research and challenges and all kinds of things that we're doing. We also work with a lot of folks that are heavy users of energy, right? So water, wastewater, which OneSource and Rockwell and Cisco all work on. Sometimes the largest consumption of an energy grid in a given environment is the water, wastewater infrastructure. So Cisco's investing heavily to sort of help shore up those items. And we're following where the federal government has got their main charter to secure critical assets, right? So just wanted to close with that Cisco has got a heavy eye on sustainability, and all of that trickles down to, us helping the environments that we support to modernize. With that, I'll conclude and hand back.
Robert, thank you so much for sharing that, and sharing how Cisco and Rockwell and OneSource collaborate in securing your sustainability project. So Ron, we'll turn it back to you. Thank you so much.